Tonight's film, Le Deuxième Souffle, is one of Jean-Pierre Melville's very best films. The English title would be Second Wind. It's a gangster movie, and Melville is best known, I think, for his gangster movies. I first met Melville in London doing a BBC interview for radio. At the end of the interview, we got on very well, and he basically offered me a job in Paris. 4 months later, I was working on a film he made called Le Doulos with Belmondo, which was also a gangster movie. I was a very young man, and suddenly I was thrown into this world in Paris that was really like entering a family, and it was a strange family. Melville had relationships with everyone he worked with. He saw them as part of a family, sons, daughters, uncles, aunts, even though they were actors, technicians, and so forth, who had no real relationship to him. Now, in Le Deuxième Souffle, what you see is really a family of people. The relationships between the gangsters, the crooks, and the police, and their various wives, girlfriends, and so forth, is basically like a family. Everybody knows everyone else. It's axiomatic, I suppose, that the relationship between gangsters and police is a very close one. Each knows the foibles, tricks, techniques of the other. And in a way, they're part of the same world, the same milieu. One interesting thing about Le Deuxième Souffle is that as a film noir, it breaks certain conventions. And one of those is the relationship of the hero, the late lamented Lino Ventura, who plays Guy in the film, and the detective who is following him and trying to trap him, a man called Blow, played by Paul Meurice. Now, in most films which have detection and pursuit and following, the policeman occupies a role of the explainer. In other words, after a particular scene has occurred, he comes back to report on what happened, how, why, and where, and so forth. This has been parodied excruciatingly by Blake Edwards in the Clouseau movies with Peter Sellers. But what Melville did with Paul Meurice and the detective in this story is to create a character who actually tells you the story as you go. This man is the controller of the action. And this is an aspect, I think, of Melville's work, where he takes a genre, like the film noir, the gangster movie, and subsumes it to his own special purposes. And this relates back, I think, to the family. The idea that relationships between family members always have loyalty as an essential part of them. But on the other hand, going with that comes betrayal, adultery, incest, and so forth. Jean-Pierre Melville saw that in the gangster story, there was a strange analogy between the world of gangsters and police and the world of the resistance in France. The occupying power, the Germans, became the police. The gangsters were the leaders and workers in the movement of the resistance. So, for the French, a film like Deuxième Souffle has a special significance. It's not just a gangster story. It has ramifications which connect with the whole of French culture after the war, when betrayal and collaboration became issues that you couldn't speak of openly. Now, this connection between gangsters and the resistance has a long history in French culture, and it comes in different forms. For example, Cocteau constantly used the idea of the police as messengers of death. In Orphée, the riders, the outriders on their motorcycles, come and take Orpheus away. And you'll notice in Deuxième Souffle, during the heist, there are two outriders who are, as it were, refugees from the world of Cocteau. Melville was very close to Cocteau as a friend and also collaborator, insofar as he made Les Enfants Terribles around 1950. And what Cocteau, in a sense, taught him was that when you mythologize characters, whether it's Greek mythology or any other, or personal mythology, what happens is that you make them in some way unreal. To me, there's a very close connection between Melville and Cocteau in the idea that the enactment of crime and rejection of society, outsiders and so forth, is another version of the child's world trying to resist adults and the conventions of school and so forth. So what you get in Melville are layers of significance quite beyond the traditional gangster movie. They're films about lost childhood. They're films about fantasies of killing, fears of betrayal and so forth, which children have very strongly and which you lose later. Melville never lost that feeling of living, in a sense, his youth over and over and over again. In fact, he always said to me, "You only make one film in all your life and the rest are remakes."